Oh hey, it's me, Orcrist_GC. I just want to say what a wild ride it's been so far. I'll admit that we uncovered a lot of plot details even I didn't have in mind when this whole thing started. It means a lot to me that you're watching this, so I want to say thank you for sticking with me this long. But before we dive in, if you haven't seen the start of this series covering Majora's Mask, be sure to check out the intro and other videos in the description. Okay, so last time I left things on a bit of a cliffhanger. There's the plot we all know about in this game, namely the Skull Kid's plan to imprison the giant so he can bring the moon down on Termina. It seems like he's just out for revenge and mad with power, but I think there is more to it than that. If we acknowledge that Majora, the mask itself, has been in command this entire time, what exactly is it trying to do? Well, we're going to need to backtrack a bit just so we have all the facts on paper. We discussed in the first video that Majora planned to be stolen by the Skull Kid to escape the Happy Mask Salesman. From that, we inferred that the mask has the ability to corrupt the minds of lesser creatures. We also know that Majora appears to have no effect over the Happy Mask Salesman. So if he is of different quality than other people, just who is the Happy Mask Salesman really? I'm not sure what the consensus theory is regarding this character, but a popular opinion is that the Happy Mask Salesman of Majora's Mask is the same person from Ocarina of Time. I personally don't think that's the case at all. From my perspective, the Happy Mask Salesman of Majora seems native to Termina and his doppelganger native to Hyrule. The reason I say that is because the masks of Hyrule have no special abilities. Another difference is the salesman of Hyrule is not a nomad and is seemingly a regular guy. The salesman of Termina, though, can move with lightning speed and transport himself as well. We can't say for sure how long he's been in possession of that mask, but it's clear to me that his mysterious power makes him immune. In this way, he's similar to a character from The Lord of the Rings. Those who've read the books will remember Tom Bombadil from the Old Forest just outside the Shire. There's no record of who he is or where he comes from, but he serves one very important cause for the plot of that book. He is capable of sensing great power, he can undermine the will of any strong force like ancient trees or Barrow-wights, and he is aloof and incorruptible. There's a scene in the book where he asks Frodo for the ring, which he agrees to without a thought, and Tom proceeds to put the ring on his finger and even briefly make it disappear. But unlike Bilbo, Gollum, or any other ring bearer, Tom Bombadil doesn't vanish when he wears the ring, and he has no interest in claiming it for himself. Even powerful beings like the elves and Gandalf do not have a will this strong. So when Elrond holds council to decide what to do with the ring, some suggest giving it to Tom so he can keep it safe. Gandalf quickly denounces this plan as careless because Tom would simply forget about the ring and allow anyone to find it again. With that said, I think the Happy Mask Salesman is very similar, but he is not the only such person like this in Termina. There is a race of salesmen in Termina that serve a purpose in the balance of power. Now, I want to turn your attention to the end of the game. After Majora reveals itself as the true antagonist, it flees into the moon and tries to distract Link with a game of hide-and-seek. Some have explained this whimsical transportation to an empty field as a projection created by Majora. I, on the other hand, think this event is supposed to be taken very literally. We aren't seeing an illusion, but the home of the salesman and the moon children. When you speak to each one, they say to you, "Masks, you have a lot. You too? Will you be a mask salesman?" To me, this is a clear indication that these children are like the mask salesman we know, and judging from their hairline and facial structure, they look exactly like him too, almost like clones. Thus we can assume the moon children have the same will to resist the power of masks. Notice how they are wearing the masks of a Dolwa, Goat, Gyorg, and Twinmold and are not transformed by them. Then I want you to remember what the game tells us when Link defeats one of the bosses. You have freed the innocent spirit that this dark mask had kept imprisoned. The game makes no mention that the dark power has left each mask upon defeat, as it leaves Majora when Link destroys it. Also, when you collect a mask, each one leaves your grasp and disappears. I kind of assumed this mask sat in your inventory, but I think this is how the moon children came to possess each one. In this moment, each mask was transported to the moon and became the property of a moonchild, which is why they appear wearing them the moment you arrive there yourself. As for Majora, I think it was claimed by the fifth child when it attempted to flee from Termina. Then, once Link traded with the other children, they left the moon to fulfill their roles as salesmen on the surface. Before I forget, let's take a closer look at the fifth moonchild. The last one remaining appears to be an outcast, and he wears Majora's mask without being corrupted like the Skull Kid. He also possesses the Fierce Deity's mask, which the game warns may hold powers as great as Majora. We don't know how he came to possess this powerful mask, but I would guess that possessing two very powerful masks would be the reason he sits in isolation. The power of the fierce deity and Majora would overwhelm most, and that's maybe why he parts with it so easily. Even if that isn't the explanation, the point remains that the Moon Children are like the Happy Mask Salesman in that they have special powers and can resist even the most evil of masks. So what role do the Moon Children have in Termina? It's easy to assume they are a force of good, given that they are helping Link on his mission, but others have countered that assumption with the theory that the Happy Mask Salesman is evil. I think the answer to this debate is that they're neither. I don't see anything particularly evil or benevolent about them. To me, they seem unconcerned with the affairs of Termina and its people, they simply are. What they do is collect masks which hold the spirits of monsters that have passed away, and they trade them with people. In this way, they kind of balance the natural order set by transformative masks. Of course, at the top of the order, you have the giants that protect the people, but the laws of Termina allow both good and evil spirits to live beyond death, which obviously has both beneficial and terrifying possibilities to the people of Termina. So something would have to exist to control that power. In this way, it's more accurate to say that the Moon Children are like a natural predator. Just like a snake keeps the rat population in check, you wouldn't say a snake is good, it simply fills a role. I suppose this race of salesmen don't have evil intentions, since the Happy Mask Salesman is working with Link to avoid catastrophe, and whether their work is specifically for the benefit of all is unclear. The game doesn't allude to some master they serve or any mission they have. Their role is just to travel the land and keep great power from falling into the wrong hands. It also occurs to me that each of the 4 Moon Children you trade with will be assigned to the 4 main areas of Termina, wandering the swamp, mountains, ocean, and canyon looking for masks to collect. Alright, so now that we know who the Moon Children are, what relation does Majora have to the Happy Mask Salesman and the Moon Children? For context, I want you to think of Majora as a being of pure malice, much like Demise from Hyrule. It seeks nothing but to curse and destroy, which is why it puts the Skull Kid on the path of ruining Termina. But when it was found by the Happy Mask Salesman, it fell into the least ideal situation possible for a mask like that. To be forever in the possession of a man who could never be corrupted by its influence would be a fate worse than death. So it would need help to be physically removed from the Happy Mask Salesman's clutches. But why return to Termina, the land where it was created? This might be kind of a stretch, but I theorize that its power grows weaker when it leaves the land it was created in. We see this in the progression of spells the Skull Kid uses at the beginning of the game. First, he can simply become invisible. Next, in the realm between Hyrule and Termina, he is able to transform Link. Then, in Termina, he can pluck the moon from its orbit. But Majora didn't return home just so it could reach its true power. Its plan was to unmake the very powers that exist to keep masks like Majora in check. First, it needed to imprison the giants because they could destroy Majora if they were united together. It also needed to destroy those who could resist its powers, the Moon Children. Because remember, it's not just Termina that would be destroyed by the moon itself would also be destroyed too. In the second video of this series, I introduced the theory that the moon falling to Termina is not the true moon. We've theorized that this moon exists in the sky as an imitation of the real moon so no one would suspect something is amiss. We know that aliens exist in this world too, i.e. the ones that abduct Cremia's cows. So if the moon is the home to the masked salesman race, and bringing it down would destroy the giants and the salesman, Majora could essentially kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And it's further likely that no one could intervene to stop Majora, as it seems no one in Termina is aware that the Moon Children or salesmen exist. The person closest to understanding this truth is the astronomer who studies the artificial moon, as well as the bomb shop owner who hopes to build a rocket to the moon someday. But Majora would know the truth of where the salesmen come from. It lived in his possession for some time, and even if it wasn't able to corrupt his mind, it would learn quite a few things about him. So for this reason, the plan of Majora is not just to get revenge on Termina as the Skull Kid desires, but to destroy the gods that could prevent it from rising to power. It's a very inelegant plan, but it makes quite a bit of sense when you think of Majora's history and the social order of Termina. And I'm including the other powerful masks in Termina in this plan as well. As the game shows us, the fierce deity mask is capable of defeating Majora, and there are maybe others as well. So if you come from a land where the power of masks is absolute, and the will of its protectors is unwavering, your only choice would be to destroy them all. And that is the true plot of Majora's Mask. Okay guys, I think that's enough about this game. There may be a few smaller details like the origins of each mask to talk about, but I think you can make some of your own conclusions. That really is what I find most fun about Majora's Mask. There are so many possibilities in this story that you really could argue for anything. As kind of a quick catch-all for any lingering mask origin stories, I'll say that any utilitarian mask like the Bomb Mask or Mask of Truth were created by someone, and the others are spirits of beings that likely perished somewhere near where you discover them. And just a heads up, the next video in this series will be the last one covering Majora, and it will act as sort of a segue into the next game in my series, Twilight Princess. So if you've had fun with my videos and want to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also be sure to hit up my Twitch channel. I think I'll start posting some of my speedrun personal bests from Breath of the Wild, so definitely tune in for that. So thanks again for being my companion after we were met with a terrible fate. Be safe out there, gamers.